The Story of an Hour, written by Kate Chopin, 1894. Read by LanternLeaf Audio. Knowing that Mrs. Mallard was afflicted with heart trouble, great care was taken to break to her as gently as possible the news of her husband's death. It was her sister Josephine who told her, in broken sentences, veiled hints that revealed in half-concealing. Her husband's friend Richards was there too, near her. She did not hear the story as many women have heard the same. She wept at once, with sudden wild abandonment. Then she went away to her room alone. She would have no one follow her. There stood, facing the open window, a comfortable, roomy armchair. Into this she sank, pressed down by a physical exhaustion that haunted her body and seemed to reach into her soul. She could see in the open square before her house the tops of trees that were all aquiver with new spring life. The delicious breath of rain was in the air. In the street below, a peddler was crying his wares. The notes of a distant song, someone singing, reached her faintly. Countless sparrows twittered in the eaves. There were patches of blue sky showing here and there through the clouds that had met and piled one above the other. She sat with her head thrown back against the chair rest, quite motionless, except when a sob came up into her throat and shook her. She was young, with a fair, calm face whose lines bespoke repression and even strength. But now there was a dull stare in her eyes, and her gaze was fixed on one of those patches of blue sky. It was not a glance of reflection, but of suspension. There was something coming to her, and she was waiting for it fearfully. It was subtle, elusive, but she felt it creeping out of the sky, reaching toward her through the sounds, the scents, the colour that filled the air. Her bosom rose and fell tumultuously. She was beginning to recognize this thing that was approaching to possess her, and she was striving to beat it back with her will. But now her two white slender hands were pressed against her heart. She was powerless. When she abandoned herself, a little whispered word escaped her lips. Free, free, free. Her eyes stayed bright, her pulses beat fast, the coursing blood warmed and relaxed every inch of her body. She did not stop to ask if it were or were not a monstrous joy that held her. A clear and exalted perception enabled her to dismiss the suggestion as trivial. She knew that she would weep again when she saw the kind, tender hands folded in death, the face that had never looked upon her with anything but love, fixed and grey and dead. But beyond that bitter moment, she saw a long procession of years to come that would belong to her absolutely, and she opened and spread her arms out to them in welcome. There would be no one to live for her during those coming years. She would live for herself. There would be no powerful will bending hers in that blind persistence with which men and women believe they have a right to impose a private will upon a fellow creature. And yet she had loved him, sometimes. Often she had not. But what did it matter? What could love, the unsolved mystery, count for in the face of this possession of self-assertion, which she suddenly recognized as the strongest impulse of her being? Free, body and soul, free, she kept whispering. Josephine was kneeling before the closed door, with her lips to the keyhole, imploring, Louise, open the door. You will make yourself ill. What are you doing, Louise? For heaven's sake, open the door. Go away. I am not making myself ill, she said. No, she was drinking in a very elixir of life through that open window. Her fancy was running riot along those days ahead of her, spring days, summer days, and all sorts of days that would be her own. She breathed a quick prayer that life might be long. Yesterday she had thought with a shudder that life might be long. She arose at length and opened the door to her sister's importunities. There was a feverish triumph in her eyes, and she carried herself unwittingly like a goddess of victory. She clasped her sister's waist, and together they descended the stairs. Richard stood waiting for them at the bottom. Someone was opening the front door with a latchkey. It was Louise Mallard who entered, a little travel-stained, carrying his gripsack and umbrella. He had been far from the scene of the accident, and did not even know there had been one. He stood amazed at Josephine's piercing cry and at Richard's quick motion to screen him from his wife's view. But Richard's was too late. When the doctors came, they said she had died of heart disease, of the joy that kills. Thank you for listening with LanternLeaf Audio, Timeless Tales by Lantern Light. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment and subscribe for more classic audiobooks every week.